Doug Saylor. Doug, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So we're kicking off the fall. I can't believe fall and football season is already here,
It's
but
right around the corner.
yes. So we're doing a fall sermon series, Game Time, Spiritual Lessons for the Game of Life. And each week, the sermon is going to kind of focus in on a different sport and having
Yeah.
a conversation about sports and scripture and what we can learn uh, talking about the both of them. And we have a lot of sports fans at RPC, as you know. And I
Oh
know you're
yeah.
a huge sports fan. Is football your favorite sport?
I grew up playing baseball and playing golf. Love playing golf a lot and stuff. But definitely football is the passion. But I enjoy playing golf a lot too. Play a little basketball. I was like you, but I'm a little bit shorter, so I was a guard. And my feet never got paint on them. I stayed on the 3-point line. I was Steph Curry before Steph Curry became Steph Curry. So
Of course you were.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and at our advanced age, we got to shift to golf, and football is a young man's game.
Exactly.
So how'd you get involved? Okay, let's talk. How'd you get involved with football?
So I really had a passion for it. I knew when I was young I wanted to coach. I remember creating my own playbook when I was in middle school. I was in my literature class in seventh grade. Instead of taking notes, I was over there because I was drawing up all these different plays and whatnot. Because that was back when that was 2000, 2001. That was when the St. Louis Rams was the greatest show on turf. And so
Yes.
I was obsessed with watching their offense. And so I started drawing up plays and whatnot. And then obviously you play football growing up. And then once I got to college, it was one of those things. I was playing flag football for my freshman year, and we went undefeated the whole regular season. And then we had a bye, and so I go watch our team that the game in which the winners we're gonna play them, and I record the game, everything, and so I take it back to the dorm room. And back then in the lobby, we had a big old TV, so I hooked it up to the TV. I was sitting there watching it, and I was telling all the guys on our team, "Hey, we got to come watch this film and stuff." Now, well, it didn't work. We got blown out. But and then on the way back, I was like, I really want to get back into football and stuff like that. And so I reached out to the Stafford, Georgia, and I was able to come in. I was very lucky. They said they don't really answer emails. It just so
Yeah.
happened they answered mine, and and then kind of the rest was history after that. Because then I go. It's 2007. I start helping them out in 2007, back when they had the infamous blackout game in Sanford Stadium against Auburn. And
Yep.
then after that, then I was on the field in '08, being the signal guy to Stafford when he was
Oh,
quarterback.
was that Stafford's
That
year?
was Stafford's years, yeah. And so I was the signal guy.
Okay.
I was,
I'm going to pause you there. For those
yeah.
who may not be familiar with football, what is the signal guy?
So the signal guy. So now it's a little different because now you have the headset in the quarterback's helmet. But the signal guy was Coach Bobo would tell me the play, and I would signal the play into Stafford and stuff like that. And he was really smart. Usually he only needed half the play, and he was like, "I'm good, I got it." So, and stuff like that. But you know, the responsibilities are that, but then also, if guys don't know the plays, so they're spreading out. I had several that look at me like, hey, Doug, what do I got on this play? And I quickly tell them real fast and whatnot. So I had to be on my game on a lot of things, not just with signals. And of course, then as time went on, then I was entrusted to coach guys on my own and stuff like that, which that was we went in 2011. Of course, those 3 years was AJ's career at Georgia, and so I kind
Yep.
of got to
AJ
learn.
Green, you're referring
Yeah,
to.
AJ Green, yeah, and I got to.
Probably a Hall of Fame receiver in the
Yeah,
NFL.
yeah. We're all hoping that it's soon as a Hall of Fame. There, when he retired, I was like, "You sure you don't want to play like one or two more? Because give a few more touchdowns, you're like a first ballot guy." He was
Yes.
like, "No, like I'm healthy and stuff like that, and I want to play golf." And so, uh, but so I learned how to coach while AJ was there, and did a lot of stuff with him. And then as time went on, 2011, we start getting in these other young receivers. And then obviously we had Todd come in, play running back, Todd Gurley, and play
Yep.
running back. And so I was entrusted to do drills with them to, after practice, whether that was legal or not, but, to do more stuff with them to get them ready to go, because we were going to rely on a lot of freshmen. And, and so then it kind of took off there. And then, then obviously Coach Bobo left to go to Colorado State. And it all kind of culminated there because then Coach Rick called me and promoted me to quarterback coach for the bowl game that year in 2014. And
Wow.
and he
What
let me
bowl was
coach.
that?
So what? That was the Belk Bowl. We were playing Louisville that year, and an old defensive coordinator for us, Todd Grantham, was the defensive coordinator there. That he did a lot of different blitzes and whatnot, and so Coach Rick let me run the meetings, let me run them at practice, did everything, and so that was a great experience for me, especially when our starting quarterback at that time, because Hudson Mason was our starting quarterback, because he's the one who followed Aaron Murray, and he gets a concussion. And so we had to put in the freshman Bryce Ramsey. And so I was like, well, he was a soft redshirt freshman, but I was like, oh boy. And but he made a lot of key, throws on third down that really helped us. And obviously it helps when you hand the ball off to Nick Chubb 30 times. So, but that was really cool. And then of course, then I go to Colorado State. I coached 1 year of high school football, and then I went to Colorado State. And then I went down to South Georgia for 1 year and to get my feet wet in that. But then I was like, I'm out. Too many parents are just like right there. They can just come in your office and talk to you. I'm like, you know what? I need to head back to the college ranks. So I went to Colorado State, and there I got to really coach. We had our receiver coach. His name was Alvis Wood, a great friend of mine. He has so much experience coaching receivers. And then I had a lot of experience in Coach Bobo's offense. So it's kind of like Alvis and I kind of split the receivers from time to time. He'd take one side, took the other side. I just happened to take the side that had Michael Gallup, who played for the Cowboys and stuff like that. He had a good career for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And so that was good. And then,
that helps. That helps when you're coaching that kind of talent.
That helps. And, then I go and coach 3 years, as an offensive coordinator in Mississippi Junior College, which that was a great experience.
And that was featured on the Netflix show, right?
So we played those guys. Those guys.
You were in the same. Okay.
Yeah, and I still have not watched. I watched the Netflix show when it was at Indy in Kansas. I did not watch the one in Mississippi. I was not going to support the people that we play. And so then from there went to Presbyterian College. I was the quarterback coach out there, and that was fun. In South Carolina. And then we had a great year there, but we had a change in administration. And so they fired the staff. And even though we had our first winning season in 8 years, and on offense, we were top in the league in basically everything. And we had beat the team who won the conference in Davidson. We had, went on the road to Drake in Iowa, and they put us on a bus because of COVID. And it was an 18-hour drive up there. Oh. And we beat them, came back, find out we were fired. So
are you serious?
Oh yeah. So we could have gone, but they had a new president, and they liked that guy that was the no punt, onside kick guy from Arkansas. And so then after that, went to Limestone for a year to coach receivers, and then kind of got into training for a year. And then Coach Bobo called me and asked me if I'd be interested in the head of the recruiting department, called Director of Player Personnel at Kennesaw State. And so I did that for a year. And then I was really obsessed with wanting to help players and help develop them. I really love coaching. And so then I started my own quarterback training company after that. So,
and what's it called?
QB Complete. We really focus on, on the field, but also off the field. I have a lot of virtual sessions where we watch a lot of film. We learn about defensive recognition, route concepts. We learn about pass protections. We learn about all this stuff, mic declarations that a lot of kids don't understand these days, how to change protections, stuff that may or may not help them right now, but it could help them down the road, right, at the next level. And if they're fortunate enough to play on Sunday someday. So that's been a blessing so far. So I've been very excited about that.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the precariousness of a college coach, and how you get fired. You
get fired for doing your job. That happens.
Just moving around. It's just, that's a lot. What do you love about coaching?
The biggest thing is the relationships with players. I always say that, if a coach is not in for the relationships, if he's just going in there because trying to do X's and O's, he's basically playing real life Madden. Just that's all he wants to do. It's more about the players. That's one highlight that I can say is, I've always, people can always say about me is, I coach really hard, but I love really hard with my guys.
Yeah.
And so I take the time. I'm very intentional with taking the time to get to know them. I do that now with the guys that I train to really get to know my. I mean, I played golf 2 weeks ago with one of my quarterbacks. Just hey, get away from football. Let's talk. Let's go have some fun and stuff like that. So, the relationships with the players, seeing them develop, seeing how they become great, husbands, great men. I mean, and great members of society, and see just how their life was better because you were in it and you helped them along the way. Denzel Washington once said, the most selfish thing we can do in life is help someone else because the feeling you get from helping other people and stuff like that. But, obviously you want to win and stuff like that. But, when you have guys that are winning in life because of things that you help them with, that makes it worthwhile.
Yes. What do you think football uniquely helps people learn for their life outside of sports?
It comes really, we call football the greatest team sport, because you can have 10 people doing their job, one person mess up, and one person struggles, we all struggle. One person triumph, we all triumph. I think that's what the movie from Coach Carter, now it's a basketball movie. But that things are going to happen that we just that we don't want to happen. And how do you handle that? How do you handle that adversity? Do you handle it with courage, with resiliency? The old saying is you get knocked down 7 times, you get it up 8, and that happens in life. Things are going to happen that you just don't want to happen, but you lean on the relationships between, football, you have your teammates, in life, you have your friends, your family, you lean on those relationships to share emotion, there's a saying, you double the pleasure and divide the pain. You have those people there when good things happen, everybody's excited, but when bad things happen, they're there to help you and stuff like that. And so how to handle adversity, really, you can really see it in football, but also in all sports, and how that translates to life in general.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you've kind of focused your coaching career on quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person makes a good quarterback?
So, the debate is always, size, measurables and stuff like that. One thing is, you can't have a 5'5" guy play quarterback. Obviously you have your athletic ability. You have to be able to throw the football a certain way. You have to, while you have short quarterbacks, you would like a certain size. But the short quarterbacks, there are plenty of short quarterbacks that have done it, but now we're talking about 5'10", 5'11". But
Right.
but then beyond the physical aspects of it, the obsessiveness of improvement, not, we always just say, you want to be obsessed with improvement. You always want to get better. You're never satisfied. Those guys that, like say I can refer to Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray was there, was in the building when he didn't have to be, but he's there watching film. He's there learning. He's there making sure everything, he knows everything about the defense coming up, and it's like I tell my guys all the time, I can find anybody who can throw a football, but those that have that drive, that hunger, there's a reason why you have 5-star flops, that you have first round busts. And right now, a guy just got paid for the 49ers that was Mr. Irrelevant, for a couple of years ago, in Brock Purdy, because, guys, that might not necessarily have like the best physical traits, but like say a Tom Brady didn't have the best physical traits coming into it, but you know what? You can't measure someone on the inside. And so, their preparation, everything like that really makes a good quarterback. And also, honestly, for me, now some coaches don't like this. I love quarterbacks that weren't afraid to come talk to me, because then they tell me, hey, what do you like? Hey, why do we do this? Like respectfully, ask
Yep.
questions. But that means they understand the game. They understand what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. If you just have a yes man playing quarterback or a robot playing quarterback, then you're not going to see the success, on the field. But also you're kind of hindering the kid, so to speak. You need to empower the kid to be able to think on his own, because as a coach, we can't prepare for every eventuality on the field.
Right.
There's things that are going to happen. I mean, on the basketball court, like for you, there's probably things that happen that a coach didn't prepare you for,
Right.
but if he has the tools and the ability to think on his own and things like that, then you can still have success, even if it's something that you have not necessarily taught or gone over.
Interesting. How, I mean, I kind of made the claim on Sunday that I think football requires the most diversity of
Sure.
kinds of size people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, a guy who's 5'7" can't play left tackle,
Right.
and so you have a whole wide range of people. And so, I mean, on the basketball court, I mean, obviously you have, a point guard, you could have, your Allen, even your Allen Iversons were 6 foot,
Yeah.
6'1" and stuff. But on the basketball, I mean, on a football field, you could have a 5'6" kicker,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, because you still need a kicker. And so you have someone who can run a 4.2 40, and then you have somebody who can run what we say a 4 ever, or a 6 flat, but they all can play together because they all have their different roles, their different responsibilities. Some guys who can't run as fast, but you know what, they're big. Guess what? They can protect the quarterback,
Yes.
and things like that, and so it is very diverse. When you see baseball, you have all kind of the same guys. They can field, they can throw, they can hit, but football is one that literally you have a whole wide range. When you walk into a locker room, you see literally all walks of life in the locker room.
Yes. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
When you think about football in connection with the spiritual life,
Yeah.
um, what connections do you see?
So, I like I mentioned before about relationships, I can't stress, you know, like we're not made to obviously walk our spiritual life alone. We have relationships. And on the football field, you're not made to walk alone. You have relationships. And
Right.
so you have people there that, hey, I remember, when people are baptized in the church, everybody's, all right, amen, brother, and stuff like that. Everybody's fired up because we're
Yep.
all brothers and sisters in Christ. Just like on the football field, we're all brothers and sisters. I say sisters because we do have girls that play football now,
Yep.
and we're all brothers and sisters on the football field, and so that has a lot to do with it. Now, I was blessed to work under a man in Mark Rick who was very spiritual and stuff
Yes.
like that. And so what we used to do a lot is at the start of every staff meeting, we would have a devotion. At the start of every staff meeting, and everybody would lead it at some point. Graduate assistants, everybody would lead it at some point. And so, so we talked about a lot of different things. People
Were you
opened up.
nervous when you were you
Oh,
nervous when you
always. And I knew I was like, all right, this can't take very long because especially because it's Auburn week. All right. And they're like, Doug, don't take 10 minutes now.
we're here to play football?
I was like, this baby's gonna be 3 minutes. I'm gonna wrap this sucker up. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna give the devotion. We what's the old one? I fought the good fight. I finished the race. I kept the faith, and let's go. No, and so then obviously then Coach Bobo adopted that and took that with him to Colorado State, and then I did that with my own players, and so because that's one thing that you connected with, and so especially when I was at PC, when I was at Limestone and other places, at the start of every position meeting, and say if we only had an hour, but I still made sure that we had time for it. And so I would let each kid lead a devotion every single day. And
Wow.
and I told them going in, I was like, this is a judgment-free zone. What we talk right here does not leave this room. And so kids felt like they could be vulnerable. They could open up, and because some we're going through things because we don't know what another kid's going through, unless
Right.
we sit and we take the time to spend with them and talk to them And honestly, like I always used to lead it. Whenever I led it, I used to try to be open up and be vulnerable to the guys, because if they see that I can be vulnerable, then they can be vulnerable. Because you can't ask a kid, "Hey, tell me what's going on," and you're just, this figure. It's there's a lot of human, element to that. And so, kids would say, "I'm looking forward to this. I've been counting down the days. I got this thing on Thursday, and so I'm really looking forward to it." And of course, I always told the kids, "Hey, if anybody says anything about this stuff outside, if anybody shares what they don't want shared, you can go get your butt in the portal." So I was like, I don't have time for that. Okay. Because what we say right here, this is a team, we're together. And so what we say in here stays in here and stuff like that. So,
that's super cool.
that really helped, my relationships with my players, and helped even them learn to speak on things that are near and dear to them, and empower them to give them the strength to do that as well.
Right. And so so you liked when players would maybe push back or ask questions?
So respectfully,
Yeah.
obviously, but as a coach, I might say something wrong,
Right.
and I don't need a guy being a yes man, okay? Because I say in my lessons all the time now, I might say something and I'm like, hey, coaches mess up too,
Yep.
and stuff. But it's that just was able to take it to a whole nother level and stuff, and be like, I would say something in protection wrong, and one of my quarterbacks would be like, "Coach, did you say that right?" I'm like, "No, I did. I messed up. Thanks for telling me though."
Yeah.
And stuff like that, or like, "Hey, I tell my quarterbacks, hey, you write down your 5 things that you like,
Yep.
okay, and then you give them to me, because at the end of the day, you're the one playing. And even though I think it's a touchdown, if you don't feel comfortable throwing that, I'm not the one playing." And so, like,
Right.
now every once in a while, they might be like, "Dude, this can be wide open, so you're gonna throw this thing regardless," But there's things that that a kid's got to be comfortable with, of course. And so, I always felt that relationship among us, because at the end of the day, we're together, we're a team. It's not coaches, players, we're together, and
Right.
our common goal is to go win a football game. And so, how do we do that? We have to be on the same page. And so, I had a quarterback. His name was Tyler Huff, and he was my quarterback at Presbyterian College. And then he went to Furman. He went 18-4 at Furman, something like that. But then last year he was the quarterback at Jacksonville State, and he won Conference USA Player of the Year.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and I still train him, and we still talk all the time. But it all kind of started back when we were at Presbyterian College together, because that one year he was all conference, stuff like that. But we had that relationship where, hey, you know what? Hey, tell me what you're thinking right here. What do you like? Stuff like that. Now, and he knew, what line not to cross, and we had good dialogue. And so I not necessarily say like push back, but just have dialogue back and forth.
Yep.
Like I don't want a yes man. I don't want a yes man. I want somebody who understands what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's only going to help us succeed in the long run.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Who's the best player you ever coached?
By position or overall?
Yeah, let's do by position. Quarterback.
Quarterback, Murray, Aaron was obviously the most productive in college, because he still leads the SEC in career touchdown yards and career touchdown passes.
Incredible.
It's
The
it's
SEC
ridiculous.
too. It's like,
In the
wow.
SEC, it's ridiculous. And but as far as talent goes, I mean, there's no denying that Stafford was by far the most talented. We had some talented guys. We had some talented guys there, but just didn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Like Matthew did. And obviously Matthew's still doing what he's doing in the league. And I'm just lucky. I trained his nephew, and his nephew lives in Johns Creek, and so I train him. So I see his brother-in-law and his sister-in-law all the time. So
Oh, that's cool. That's
oh
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who is the best running back?
Running back. Whew. So obviously, the short list is your Todd Gurley's, your Nick Chubb's, your Sony Michelle's. One guy that by far was talented, but obviously ran into some trouble, was Isaiah Crowell.
Oh,
And because he was a 5-star out of Carver, Columbus, and that
okay.
dude was special. He was special. Obviously, no Sean Moreno too.
Yep.
But all those guys, Keith Marshall, I mean, we had a slew of running backs in my time there that were really special. So,
Georgia, man.
oh yeah.
How about wide receiver? Are you going to
I mean,
say
there's
AJ?
only one. I mean, there's only one answer, right? There's only one answer. You had AJ, of course. You had some other really good guys. Your Chris Conleys of the world. That he played 10 years in the league. He just retired. Malcolm Mitchell, who had six catches for 70 yards against us in the Super Bowl in 2016 because he played for the Patriots. And I try not to hold it against him, but it was kind of hard because you're like, the Falcons are going to win. They're starting to come back, but Malcolm's playing good. And so you have those guys. You have yours. Obviously, you have your Chris Dermott, your Muhammad Massaquaz. You have all those guys. Then obviously, at Colorado State, you had your Michael Gallup. He was special. We had another receiver by the name of Preston Williams, who was a 5-star out of Lovejoy that signed at Tennessee, but then he transferred to Colorado State, and we used to call him a natural born killer out there because he was special, and he played in the league for a few years too, and so he was good. But you had a lot of those special receivers. Your Michael Bennett's, all those guys that are just really special, talented players.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of competition, you're going to be playing in the RPC Mission Outreach Golf Tournament here in a couple weeks.
I mean, when you're the reigning champion, you got to, right? So
I did. You're the defending champ. So who do you have on your team?
So
all I remember is last year you almost killed me about 3 or 4 times.
So it was funny. I ran into Carrie Weatherford at the kickoff thing, and I told her the story about we're on hole number 2. And Josh Murray, and you're in front of us on the tee box, and Josh Murray shanks a shot and hits your golf cart. And then he's like, oh, hold on, this one doesn't count. I just got to fix this. And he hits it, and he does it again. And I say, oh, we're trying to take Jeff out. We're trying to get Kerry promoted. So, no, as of right now, Josh said he'll play again. And AJ said he'll play again as well. So, it's funny because at that point, I had not officially met you yet. And I still tell this story that I was on the driving range and AJ was in my cart. And of course it has, Doug Saylor, AJ Green. And I'm walking back and you say something about, man, that's a nice swing, Doug. And I'm like, Jeff knows my name? Oh, wait, I'm not AJ. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. I was like, process of elimination here. You got a 6'4", 5'10" guy, who.
So are you looking for a 4th?
So I've been asking a few people. A few people about it, about the 4th. So I'm working on as far as trying to find another person that either played or coached, at Georgia or that has some notoriety. So I'm still working on that. So
look at you.
We'll see what happens.
I am also. I realize I've got to up my game. I got to up my team. To compete with y'all this year. So I'm looking for a few ringers.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? It's still you got to put your handicap in. So you got to put your handicap in. So I mean, it helps when I got a couple of guys who are 15 or 20 handicaps. So
when you're scratch,
it helps. It helps when they balance it out. Give me a read on a putt.
Amazing.
Oh yeah.
All right, Doug. Well, thank you for closing the distance. This has been really fun, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. See you.
All right. Take care, bro.